There you go. Thank you for joining us as well. Tell us about Arcturis and what you guys offer customers.
Sure. Well, I have to say first, I'm so inspired by Laura. I was like, oh, please don't call me next. I learned so much. Well, first of all, there's so many of our clients and our industry partners in here and just friends that it's amazing to be in this room with this group. So Arcturis is a multidiscipline design firm, architecture, interior design, graphic design, landscape architecture. And we're a design collaborative. We do corporate architecture and non-acute healthcare and higher education are kind of our primary areas, but then sometimes we get really awesome projects like with the Chess Club, the Chess World Hall of Fame. Those are some of our projects here in St. Louis.
Well, tell us, so you were into ballet as a youngster. So how did it go from ballet to interior design? How did you get involved in interior design?
Well, the reality set in about age 16 and spending the summer in New York City that I was probably never going to be able to achieve the level of performing that I wanted to and earn a living. And so I had to look at what else could I do, what else am I passionate about. And I come from a very creative family, a lot of artists, painters, musicians on one side. And while I have always loved to draw, I was not as good as probably the rest of my family, but I was like, well, what could I do with that? And architecture, you're using tools to assist you in that creative process, so I'm like, why not that? And actually, when I first sought my education, landscape architecture was kind of really my first love. I loved to be outdoors. And so I went to a program that had landscape architecture, and interior architecture, but I quickly discovered I really liked interior architecture and ended up in that field.
Tell me about, now you worked for a competitor company to this one, right, previously. How
Yes.
did it come around to you purchasing this business?
Well, so out of college, I went to work for a large international architectural engineering firm here in St. Louis, and actually they're no longer here in St. Louis. I took well, in my early years there, whenever I would go out to networking or events like this, I would always see Pat Whitaker with Interior Space across the room, with usually talking to whoever it was I was supposed to be talking to, and couldn't even get close to them. And, this was really, I would see this quite often. I'm like, I think that's really who I need to be working for. And many of you probably heard the story. I actually had applied there for an internship during my college, and I didn't even get an interview. Out of college, I had applied to interview and got an interview but didn't get the job. And so here I'm working for this large international firm. I took a transfer and I was in their Honolulu office for 3 years.
Oh, that had to be rough.
That was terrible. It was really terrible. And then they were getting ready to send me to Hong Kong to work out of the office there. And it was a point in my career I was ready to get married, settle down. My husband, then boyfriend, had followed me to Hawaii, and he was not having to work as hard as I was. And we decided to come back to the Midwest, and a friend of mine was working at then called ISI, Interior Space, with Pat Whitaker, and she said, we really need help. And I said, I'm there. Can you get me an interview? And so she did, and I did this during the Christmas holidays, and I came in and they forgot I was coming in that day to interview. And but anyway, I had a quick 30-minute interview. Pat offered me the job, and I came to work. That was a long time ago, 93, still fairly early in my career, and I grew up in the firm, and today, and I think many people may not realize this, but there are 4 other partners, and we're looking at as we grow that, and of those 4, 3 of them are women, and 2 of them were here in the room. I think one had to leave for a meeting. But
no, tell me about what you learned from Pat over the years.
Yeah.
And it's just some of the keys to success for the business over the years.
Yeah, so we could spend like hours on what I've learned from Pat. I think 2 things really have shaped kind of how I lead today, and one is not to be afraid of change. And I know Laura was speaking about the recession and buying Ginger Bay. That was very similar with my partners and I came into leading the firm right in the middle of the recession, is when Pat really implemented her succession plan. And so, Pat had always exhibited to us and really strongly practice change. And, it's important to stay fresh. In fact, we just rebranded the firm, refreshed our brand. If something's not working, then change. You need to do it quickly. You always need to be looking at kind of what is your next thing. And so, sometimes that's hard. Some of us don't adjust to change. Some people in the firm don't adjust to change. But really our jobs as leaders is always like looking ahead and what's next, and really, being ahead of the curve and everyone else in your industry.
Now, last question. Laura talks a lot about professional development,
Yes.
and you've been involved in that in your company for years. Tell me what that means and why, for you guys, what that means and why you got so involved in that.
Yeah, so when I had come to Arcturis, I think we really didn't have a formalized program. And actually, one, we had a need for it because we were hiring a lot of entry-level designers, and we still do today. And in the design profession, your education is really spent on design. And so you get out into the field, and especially in a commercial corporate world, you need to learn the business side of that. So for me personally, it was like trying to bring along and mentor the young designers in our firm, but here's the business aspect in providing excellent client service, how we deliver our projects, and the business side of that. And so and plus I was kind of getting a little bored with what I was doing in terms of project management and client management. So, I approached Pat and said, I think we really need this in the firm. I would love to spend full time on it, but I can't. As a professional, we have to be billable. So how about I spend 20% of it and really put in place a formalized program that's both internal and external. And so we launched it, and really it really carried us through to the recession. And actually I'm really excited because a group of our directors are just recently really picking that back up and focusing. And it's just critical in what we do, and I think in any business.
Yeah, I think every employee wants to know that they matter and they make a difference. And I think that those programs certainly help them
Yes.
know that they do those things. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.